team, come and take your seat up on the stage, por favor. Joe couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately. He's sick again. He was sick a couple weeks ago and conveniently missed the fundraiser too. We have like one seat down here if it's tight down there, or we can all just do a little butt shuffle down this way. Boom, teamwork. Got pretty good at that this week. Well, it looks like you got the privilege of starting first. This is my wife, Katie, if you don't know. Just say hi to her sometime. She's sweet. Okay, is this working? Check, check. All right, there you go.
Thanks, Ploy, for doing sound. Sounds great, hopefully, I think. I'm Katie Yurkovich. I'm Pastor Ben's wife, and this is my second trip to Mexico. Some memories I have, one of the memories I have was I got to go to a small Bible study that a relative of Jeannie Sue hosts at her house, and I was expecting kind of a range of ages, but it mainly was some 20-year-olds and in the teens Bible study. And the other guys were working on the skit, which you will see soon. So I was alone in the privilege of getting to hear the testimonies of some of these girls. There was one who was 16, another one who was 15, of how they came from hard families, how their moms came to the Casa del Pastor, and how they learned about Jesus at the Casa. And one of the takeaways I had with mission work, because in the past sometimes I'm like, okay, we go down there, we build some stuff, and then we come back. Like, what's the lasting purpose? Because houses rot, roofs fall in, paint needs to be repainted. But we enable the workers who stay down there, the missionaries who stay down there full-time, to tell Jesus. Like, we make it a little easier for them to live life down there, build the rooms they need, build the houses so they don't get wet, the shelter that they need, so they can do the work of telling the gospel when we can't be there day in, day out. The real work takes place day in, day out. You guys know that because you do it every day. And it was a blessing to see how we do make a difference, and the work that God does in the hearts when we're not there, because the work keeps going. It's beautiful. And a second thing I remember and learned from the trip was getting to talk with some Ukrainian ladies when we were helping them out at the border on Friday. And I thankfully got to talk with two ladies who knew a fair amount of English, which was great because the only words I knew were hello, which isn't very useful. Talk about a culture shift. I don't know about these guys, but I was definitely trying to use my Spanish on the Ukrainian ladies, and it was not working. We were just all confused. But I got to just talk with them about how they're doing, about what they came from, and to one of the ladies, to Anna, I got to talk with her about her faith and how long she'd been a Christian. And even with some of the ladies I met, like Ira and Dasha and Nadia, who I didn't quite know where they stood with the Lord, they radiated such peace that even though things were crazy, all would be well. And that was a great encouragement for me, because I've got it pretty good here. My life isn't topsy-turvy, but our God still holds us in our hands, and our God still reminds us that all will be well. And a verse that stood out to me from 1 Peter, which was a study that we went through on the trip, a couple verses actually. 1 Peter 3, 8 through 11. To sum up, the whole Bible summed up, all of you be harmonious, sympathetic, brotherly, kind-hearted, and humble in spirit, not returning evil for evil or insult for insult, but giving a blessing instead. For you were called for the very purpose that you might inherit a blessing. For the one who desires life, to love and see good days, must keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. He must turn away from evil and do good. He must seek peace and pursue it. And even though it's not in 1 Peter, what that passage brought to mind so often through the study of 1 Peter was Micah 6:8. He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. And that's all I got. A lot of things to chew on.
Hello, I am Elena, and I am one of the youth leaders in the upper room. And this was my first time to Mexico, actually first time on any mission trip, so it was kind of new and exciting. Like Katie was saying, just being able to talk with the Ukrainians was just, it was really weird. I wanted to use Spanish, but it didn't work. And that stood out to me so much because I was seeing them, like, being able to talk with them, hearing some of their stories and what was going on. That was like, it just stood out more to me because over the rest of the trip, I was just painting. Lots of painting, and that just kind of discouraged me that I was just painting all the time, and then going and talking with the Ukrainians and seeing what was going on with them, praying with them, just hearing their stories. It was just like, whoa, this is really cool. And I was able to see how our team was able to order them Uber rides and drive them places, and it was just like seeing an active need filled, and just like it was just like, whoa. So that part stood out to me a lot. And then I was thinking, like, why do I feel discouraged about, like, just painting and, like, not interacting with people and just painting? Hold on, I have to look at my notes. Anyway, I remembered that God, he uses everything. I had to just stop and remember that, like, it doesn't matter how significant or insignificant it seems, he uses everything. And it's just an honor to be able to do anything at all for his name. And I was reminded of John 20:29, where Jesus says, blessed are those who do not see but still believe. And I know in that context it's talking about Jesus, but it just reminded me of, like, you may not see the fruit of your service, but if you just keep on going, that's so special. I know it's really easy to get discouraged when you're just painting and painting and painting. It's like, why am I painting? I'm just making a room look different. Like, why? Anybody can paint. But, God will use that in some way. I don't know how. I don't think I ever will know how, but he will use it, and I will just trust in that. And it just reminded me of, like, when I come home, I have a mouth to smile at people. I have a mouth to say, how are you doing? Hands and feet to just do trivial little things for people. And I may never see the fruit in that. I may never, know what it does, what God does through it, but he will work through it. And that was just something I had to really, think on. Hold on. I keep laughing. I'm very nervous, if you can't tell. So I guess that brings me to the verses that I really liked from the trip. It was in 1 Peter 2:15, for it is God's will that by doing good you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish people. And it reminded me of the saying, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And I was thinking how, people will just slander you as a Christian because that's what the enemy does. And it's just kind of terrifying to me, I could be living in such a way that even at some point their slander might be true. They might be making a false claim and, well, actually is true. And then, you can't deny that without lying. And so hold on, I'm sorry. I was just thinking how, there's so much anxiety that comes with secretive sin. I want to be able to live a life where no matter what claim somebody makes about me or my faith, that it will not be true. And then verse 20 says, in that same chapter, it says, but how is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. And so I was thinking, you should always avoid secret sin, but then going back to that thinking about doing good works that aren't seen or noticed either, it's just I don't know, I was thinking a lot about this secret life. What do I do that is unseen, that I think nobody notices and that doesn't matter? And everything together was just like really pointing out to me that, you know, we think that things don't matter. We think that things don't make an impact on people, but God will work through even the smallest, most secretive things you do, and even secret sins, they will come to light someday. And so coming out of this whole trip, I think that's where I've been the most reflective, is just like, how am I living my life that nobody sees? Because that is an area that God works so profoundly. Yeah, I don't have a good closing to this, so. Sorry.
Excuse me. Well, my name is Gabe Ensko. This is my third mission trip down to Mexico. Let's see, let me open up my notes as well. Doop. All right. I would have to say my favorite part about actually working was waking up at 6 in the morning and doing the roofing job when it was that 100-degree day. Because normally we'd start work after breakfast, but that day we woke up an hour before everybody else did. We didn't do our study, we just went straight to the job site and started working immediately. And then I think it was like around 10 or 11 o'clock, we finally got finished, and just being able to stand on that roof and look at all the shingles we set up within the past 4 hours or whatever it was, and just being like, yeah, I did that. I think that's a really cool thing to do, is just to actually see what you've been able to do and just see how efficient we were all able to work together, just that teamwork. And then also, another, then the more fun thing was the van rides, and more specifically the singing we did all together, because I think I counted at one point, and I think we have 10 musicians who went. So just having all those really catchy songs and just being able to sing them at the top of our lungs, no matter how in tune or out of tune our voices were, how tired we were, we just sang them anyways. And I think that's something I had to relearn again, was the fact that being a Christian is fun. It's really easy to forget that sometimes. You're like, just being in this world of the flesh and sin, right? I always think in the back of my mind, oh, I'm going to be appearing as that Christian who just doesn't have any fun, shows up to church because I have to be here, yada, yada, yada. I'm just, can't think of any examples, but hopefully you understand what I mean. But this trip really reminded me that being able to surround myself with Christian brothers and sisters is a joyful time, and the act of fellowship is just so precious and fun. The verse I picked out was 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 13, saying, "Therefore prepare your mind for action, being sober-minded, and set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you in the revelation of Jesus Christ." More specifically, that idea of being sober-minded. It pops out multiple times throughout all of 1 Peter, and I think that was a reminder for me that not only should being Christian mean being sober from, drunkenness or any of that other stuff, but also just when I'm intaking and what is fulfilling in my head, and just that idea going back so many times before in the Bible where it talks about, do not put your mind on earthly things and fleshly things and sinful things, but rather set your mind on heavenly things and things that will bring fruit into my life.
Hello, I am Jack. I don't use microphones often, so. This is my first mission trip ever. I came with my grandpa, so that's fun. Did I even introduce myself?
No.
Oh, hi, I'm Jack. Wait.
I did. I forgot.
Me too. 10 days of working in heat is not good for the brain. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did a lot of good work. I did roofing, not with him though. It was a roof at the casa, and also a little bit of filling up cracks with plaster. I'm pretty sure. I think it was plaster. And okay. And yeah, it was just a really cool experience getting those skills because I don't know where else I would get them from. Like, there's no situation where I would be the person doing the roofing. You get people to do that. Yeah. And yeah, it's just, we did a lot of good there, and I'm really happy about it. Now, the van rides. You are sitting in a van for 12 hours. You have nothing else to do other than talk to the people next to you. So I come up with the brilliant idea, that's a good sentence, a brilliant idea of a fake podcast where I make everyone around me go absolutely insane with nonsensical anything. For example, did you know that the rocks are getting away? And it was like that for the last 2 rides, and it was beautiful.
It drove me crazy, but I laughed.
That's all I wanted.
It's what you call absurd humor.
Yeah, that's all I wanted, people to laugh. And yeah, so we got back to the States to help with the Ukrainian refugees, and that was a very unique experience because English and Spanish are based in Latin, so they're much different from like Ukrainian or Russian because they're completely different roots. Like the words aren't that similar. But for some reason, agriculture is immediately understood. Why agriculture out of every word? Like farming, like what? Plants, like that doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, like hearing this new language that I've never heard before. All these people they're really nice. And it was a great experience. We got to help a lot of people. We welcomed them to the States. It was, yeah. Anyways, a verse that really stuck out to me was in chapter 3, 1 Peter chapter 3, 15 and 16. But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. People don't usually just walk up to you and ask you why you have your faith, but you still need to be prepared for when they do, because it is going to happen. And you can't get mad at them for asking you, because it's a reasonable question to have. Like, they don't understand why we would believe. So because I never thought about what I would answer to that question before, but now I really got thinking, and I guess because there just wouldn't be any reason without faith. Like, there'd be no reason to do anything. There's nothing at the end. So that's the reason why I have the faith I have. And this verse made me realize that. So, yeah, that's nice. Nice to learn. There was a list of things I was supposed to talk about, but I forgot it, and I hope I got all of them. I did? There were 5. I thought there was only 4.
There was 4, and then there was like a part A and a part B.
It's fine.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
I don't know if I can follow this, but I'll do my best. My name is Manuel. My second time in Mexico. And the first thing I did when I got to the casa, I took a V-line to the kitchen, because if there is one thing I want to know and meet is my cooks, because you have to know your cooks. You know your cooks, you know you're going to eat well. There's some greenback, thanks. Nice people. I'm going to maybe circle around a couple of times, but one thing I got out of this whole trip is these people work hard. They are hard workers. I don't know how people get the idea that Mexicans are lazy, because they are not. They work very hard. I thought I had a kind of a servant heart. I kind of help with kitchen, garbage, whatever I can, but these people humble me on how they serve. No matter how hard they're working in the kitchen, they smile at you, and they have a warm, sincere smile, and you just know it. You can look at them and you know that their smile is true. They don't fake it and go like they do in some places. Very, very, I just couldn't believe that no matter what time of the day it was, no matter what they were doing, they will stop and help you. I don't know if I could do that. Beto is one of the guys, one of the few men at the casa, and I never saw him doing anything but work. He was always either serving food, cooking food, or cleaning after cooking food. Every time I saw him. It was amazing to me that this guy would just be non-stop working. The ladies are hard worker too. Nati, which you saw the picture, was that lady serving us food. Nice lady. There was another couple of ladies that were always working hard to serve us. I was afraid that there wouldn't be enough food. I say, we're gonna eat it all. I say, believe me, there would be plenty of food. I say, you don't know these guys. They eat like elephants. I say, there would always be food. And it was true. No matter how much we ate, there was always food left. I was surprised. It's just like the miracle that you keep scooping out oil and there is still more in there. It was amazing for me to see how they believe. Another thing that was always impressed me, that I would say thank you, and they wouldn't say thank you. They would say, thank God. And I'm thinking, that's the right attitude. I can thank you, but they say, don't thank me, thank him, because he's the one who provided all this. And that really touched me too, because we say thank you like a matter of fact, but we don't really believe it sometimes. We say it because we have to. They say it because they truly feel it. Well, that's impressive to me. My favorite portion of the Bible study was 1 Peter 4, 12 through 19, I believe, and it relates to, doesn't relate to the experiences I had in the trip, but it reminded me that when we are together as a family, Christian family, we don't see any suffering, we don't have any troubles, we're always happy, nothing bad really happens, but that's not truly how the world is to us most of the time. So the Bible warns us that we will suffer. Not right here probably, but outside of this community we will suffer. And the Bible encourages us to not lose faith, because Christ suffered already for us and keeps suffering for us. So we need to endure this suffering for us, little as that may be. It would be nothing compared to what he endured for us. And he says, do it for me because I've already died for you. And that seems to me a very simple request. It seems very common sense, matter of fact, that we should endure whatever this world throws to us and keep the faith, because that is the whole point. We're going to suffer trials, we're going to have to endure them. That didn't come out right. We need to endure them simply because he died for us, and we need to suffer a little bit with him in order to gain heaven. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Derek Schweitzer. This is my first mission trip of really any variety, and after going on this one, I could kick my past self for not doing this sooner, because I loved it. I loved the van rides, because at least for me, I actually found it difficult to get either, super bored, because I'm an extrovert. So even if I'm not socializing, if I'm around people, I'm good. I can just, this is gonna sound weird, but I can just drink in just the passive energy. I don't know, psychology is weird. Yeah, so the van rides were really fun. Discovered this new game called Snaps, which was just an absolute hoot. Just seeing that that two different people can start from the same subject matter, and one of them can reach World War II, and the other one can reach King George. This trip was wonderful. I'm gonna pull in Elena and open up my notes. And I think the Ukrainians, I really love that. I could not communicate with them in the slightest. At least at a Casa del Pastor, I know how to say no hablo español. I don't speak Spanish. With the Ukrainians, it was just do you speak English? No. And a surprising number of them knew basically only that. Do you speak English? And no. There wasn't a heck of a lot that I could do in terms of communicating, but it's just being there and helping out and seeing because when it comes to world conflicts, it's easy to just scroll past it, on your Twitter feed and just ignore it. But this really brings it home that that this is a real issue that needs to be resolved. Putin is not a fun character. And I think over the course of this trip, it really found a way to cement things that were already in my head. In fact, I think it was Mike wherever he's sitting, is it? Yeah, there he is. Who said, like, on the matter of, like, how you're going to be viewed as a Christian, you're either a stench or a fragrance. And I, like, found that's a really great way of, like, putting it. Like, I learned, I'm saying like a lot more than I thought. Yeah, I thought I did, okay. So if you're liked or disliked, before a change, you need to ask why. If it's you're liked because you're a Christian, that's a good thing. If you're disliked because you're a Christian, that's also a good thing. Well, in a different sense. And I found that pretty helpful and, you know, really useful. And I think when in terms of verses, okay, well, my Bible app is choosing now to refresh. Okay, there we go. Yeah, 1 Peter 3:15 through 16, I just love, and if you like know me personally, you'd understand why. But sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence, and keep a good conscience, so that in the thing in which you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ will be put to shame. So verse 15, being ready to make a defense, that's, yes, just plain me, yes. I love that sort of thing. I'm like an opinionated person. I love philosophy of religion. That's my thing. And yet at the same, Peter's like, he's following this up immediately with basically, you need to be careful, wise with how you do this, and remember that actions speak louder than words. So like, when somebody like challenges me, my gut response is not really to be, I'm sorry you feel that way, but to fight back, really. And really, you know, this verse is, you know, just a useful reminder that that's not always the best route to go. Sometimes you need to let people think what they think, because what matters is how you act, how God views you. It doesn't matter what their beliefs really are, because that doesn't impact your salvation. And I think, you know, and we're well known for our segues, so that's all I have.
Hi, my name is Levi. This is my second mission trip. And I'd say my favorite part of the trip was probably, one, the van rides, like everyone's gonna say. Those were enjoyable. And then number two was getting to just be with everybody. I got to know and get closer to and hang out with everybody on this trip. And I got to work with a lot of people, but specifically Joe. Oh boy. Mike, Jack, and Casey, as we did a lot of different types of working, and that was just cool to get to. I just got closer to everybody on the trip, I feel. Something I learned on the trip was different types of work. We did roofing, mudding and taping, drywall. I didn't do painting, but I'm kind of happy about that. If you look at Derek's shoes. But yeah, that was something that, even though it was a little bit, it was some experience in different types of work, and that was something I'm happy that I got to learn. And then my verses that I picked out were in 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 12 through 16, which says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal among you, which comes upon you for your testing, as though some strange thing were happening to you. But to the degree that you share the sufferings of Christ, keep on rejoicing, so that also at the revelation of his glory you may rejoice with exultation. If you are reviled for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests on you. Make sure that none of you suffers as a murderer, or a thief, or evildoer, or troublesome meddler. But if anyone suffers as a Christian, he is not to be ashamed, but is to glorify God in his name." Manuel kind of covered this, so he got most of it. But what I got from that was just, it's really easy when you're in a debate or an argument or just a discussion with someone with an opposite viewpoint if they say something you don't like, to just kind of fight back, like right away. Or if someone even, like, if you're talking to them and they say something mean, it's easy to, like, be mean back. And this section is kind of about, like, as a Christian, it'd be easier if we were under attack, like spiritual attack, or being verbally abused, or being just people are being mean to us. Like, it'd be easy to fight back and do what they're doing back. I mean, that's our human nature. Just, if they did it to me, I can do it to them. That's the easy way. But as Christians, we're called to do what Christ did, which was it wasn't to do that. He didn't revile back when they reviled him. He didn't threaten them. They threatened him. I mean, it says in 1 Peter chapter 3, I think. So it's just, that's something that we're called to do, and I think that's a good point for me and everyone else to try and work on. But I think especially me, because it's just hard sometimes, and it's much easier to attack instead of being loving. So, yeah, that's what I got.
My name is JT. This is my third mission trip, second in Mexico and first in San Vicente. What was I saying? So my favorite part of the trip probably would have to be with the kids, playing with them, giving them piggyback rides, pushing them on the swing. It was just really nice to see them, their smiles, and yeah. Also, helping out the Ukrainians. I could just see the distress that was there in Ukraine, in their faces. You know, Ben prayed with one of the Ukrainian ladies, and you could just see she was tearing up. And yeah, it was heartbreaking, honestly. Yeah, and also I liked the van ride. That was pretty cool. One thing I learned, I wouldn't say learned, I would say learned to reapply, is trusting in God. And that ties into my verse, which is 1 Peter 1:13, which is, therefore prepare your minds for action, keep sober in spirit, fix your hope completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And let's see. First part, prepare your minds for action. Basically, keep a mission mindset. I know at the beginning of the mission trip, I didn't really have that, and I came across the verse, and I was like, I need that. And then, let's see, fix your hope completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Just trust in him. You can't really do anything without him, and you need him. And that's basically it for me.
Woo! Hey, I'm Casey. This is my first mission trip to Mexico. And yeah, I'm going to change it up and say that I like the van rides when they were quiet, because I'm an introvert and people talking all the time does not work. Unless you're playing Mafia, then it's really fun. Or you're stealing Jack's podcast. Hi. Yeah, I also really liked working with Joe on the roof when we got up an extra hour early, because it was really fun. It was like cool for the first hour. We got to go at the turkeys next door that were loud. And yeah, and you pretty much learned how to shingle a roof in 100-degree heat, which was not fun, but it was fun. That makes sense, yes. One of the things I learned is, like, if you're in the Spirit, you don't need a language barrier. Like, language barriers are not, like, they don't hinder you. They hinder you a little bit because it's nice to know the language, but they don't hinder you all that much. Like, you can get by with, like, playing with the kids. You can do, like, hey, do you want to get on my back so I can, like, run you around the playground? And they will get that. They will get it when you want to push them on the swing. Or if with Ukrainians, offering them a box of ice cream, well, like, hey, you can have this. It is nice. It is 100-degree heat, and it sucks. Yeah, I do not do well in crowds. Woo! First time. Chapter 4, verse 14. If you are reviled for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and God rests upon you. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, one of the things that you get on mission is the Holy Spirit, and that's pretty cool, because it can push you forward, like, pretty much in the face of anything. But we're not on mission all the time in pure, we are technically on mission all the time, but it doesn't feel like that. Outside these doors, you are on mission, but you don't always realize that. And the world is a dark place, and we have to be lights in it. And sometimes those lights can grow dim and even go out. But you have to go back to the light, to God, to really find that and light the world back up again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike McAuliffe, and this is probably my 11th or 12th mission trip to San Vicente. I was not going to go. I had plans not to go until Sunday before, and somebody says, "Oh, you're not going?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Oh, I just figured you would." And it got me to thinking, why am I not going? And I asked God, why am I not going? And I had no reason not to go. So I asked Ben if there was still an empty seat, and there was, and I went. And I'm sure glad I did. It was great. Just like all the other mission trips, you meet young adults coming to adulthood for their first time in a lot of cases, and watching them shine and doing the things that some adults won't do, but they're willing to do it because the Lord is with them. And I got to see that on this trip once again, and it was beautiful. These kids worked very hard in the hot heat. They were willing to listen when they were told to listen, and it was just a real good time. One of the things that stood out was during the Ukrainian outreach that we did, there was a guy I saw him coming out of the Mexico border thing where he's coming through the door, and he was a very stoic guy, and he did not look happy. He had probably been sitting there for a couple of days on the other side waiting to get through. And there was a guy that was standing there with this Ukrainian flag at where we were gathered at, and he greeted everybody that came in. Well, this guy was making a beeline, and he looked like, "Don't get in my way, don't talk to me, I don't want to have anything to do with you," type of thing. And that guy with the Ukrainian flag, he stood right there and got right in his face and said something to him in Ukraine, and that guy broke. He just cried. He just gushed out water, and they held each other and hugged each other for about 5 minutes. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I cried too, because it was just amazing. It was God's love. That guy showed God's love, and he was out there for probably 6-7 hours, just standing there all day. You know, he had water to drink, but that was about it. Didn't eat food, but he was welcoming his fellow countrymen into the U.S. And everybody that he talked to and came in contact either cried or gave him a hug. And it was just, I saw love in action. It was beautiful. And the verse that sticks out for me is, "Husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered, and your home life will be beautiful." Oh, I added that in, but I missed my wife on this trip, and it was kind of weird. It was just like I talked to her probably for about 15-20 minutes on the phone, and I usually don't talk on the phone, but it was neat, and I sure enjoyed the time that I had with these kids, these young adults.
All right, so this is my first time to Mexico with the church. Oh, I'm Asher. Yeah. I'd say my favorite part was hanging out with all the kids, just chilling with them. I say chill, but like at any moment, I probably had 3 or 4 kids on my back for piggyback rides. They're screaming at me to run faster and jump higher, like kids yelling at me to come push them on the swing, and kids crying because they couldn't get down from the rock wall. Yeah, so that was fun. I definitely learned one big thing, that like not everyone is really as fortunate as I am to live here in the States. We went down to one camp with like a bunch of families who lived or who worked by a field. They were pretty poor, so yeah, it definitely really helped put into perspective how lucky I am here. My verses that I chose were in 1 Peter, chapter 5, verses 5 through 6. I'm gonna start at the middle of verse 5. It says, "Clothe yourselves with humility towards one another, for God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you at the proper time." Yeah. So I definitely read that during our study time and realized, wow, I've been holding on to some pride and I need to get rid of that. So I'm going to be working on that.
Hi, I'm Haley, and this is my first time down to Mexico, my first mission trip. I would say my favorite, like, goofy thing that we did was taking a bunch of, like, random pictures. Like, first 20 minutes into the ride, we got into this habit that ended up going just, like, the entire time of taking pictures of people when they, like, finally fell asleep, and messing with them, which was really cool, because we ended up with, like, 30 pictures of, like, everyone just, like, zoned out or smacking their head against the window. And staying asleep. I also really liked this time. It was like fairly early in the morning before breakfast. I went out and was sitting at this little picnic table that they have there, and this little girl was there with her mom because she was setting up to sell like coats and blankets and stuff. And I was reading my study for the day, and she came over, and I know a little bit of Spanish, not a lot, but just a little bit. And so I kind of talked back and forth with her for a little bit, and she like sat down next to me, and so I just started reading my Bible out loud to her, and she sat there for a good 10 minutes and listened to me, and I translated what I could. It wasn't a lot, but it was a little bit. And she was just like really focused. I have never seen, she was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I've never seen a little kid that age sit there and like focus that hard on something for that long, especially when they can't understand the language that you're speaking. So it was really cool. I thought it was really interesting because once we got back, I had a lot of time to kind of like sit and realize how bad of an attitude I had, like, the entire time. I talked to him about it too. But I just had like a really crappy attitude, and I couldn't really understand why. I had a lot of fun, and I enjoyed things. I think a good amount of people here would say that I didn't really seem too much like I was in a bad mood, but I was. And so I got back and I realized that all of the stuff that I was going to end up learning from this trip would be afterwards. And after thinking about it and praying a lot. And so I read back over the verses that we had, and I kind of realized, I like how JT put it, it was more like instead of learning, relearning, that I am naturally a really selfish human being. And I am really pessimistic, especially when I am not praying like I should be throughout the day, or reading my Bible and actually reading it, not just reading it because I need to get it done for the day so I can say I did it, but like actually reading and trying to find what God has for me to learn. So the verse I picked from our study was in 1 Peter 2, verse 24. And he himself bore our sin in his body on the cross, so that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. For by his wounds we were healed. The kind of theme of dying to ourselves and dying to our sinful nature is what really stuck out to me. So I'm going to read through these quick. I have a couple other verses too. Ephesians 4, 22 through 24. You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. Galatians 5, 24 through 25. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have nailed the passions and desires of their sinful nature to his cross and crucified them there. Since we are living by the Spirit, let us follow the Spirit's leading in every part of our lives. Galatians 2, 20 through 21. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not set aside the grace of God, for if righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing. So that brought me back later in our study to 1 Peter 3, verse 8. To sum it up, all of you be harmonious, sympathetic, brotherly, kind-hearted, and humble in spirit, not returning evil for evil or insult for insult, but giving a blessing instead, for you were called for the very purpose that you might inherit a blessing. So yeah, to sum it up, I kind of suck as a person without God, and my eyes were reopened to the idea that I have to choose every single day to wake up and choose God. You make that choice when you accept Jesus as your savior, to be a Christian and follow him, but you have to walk in faith and act in faith. You can't just sit there, because if you sit there, you're not going to do anything. You're going to live in sin, and you're going to dwell in your selfishness and your bad attitude and getting tired and hot and not liking anything that's happening. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Gabe. I think this is my 5th time to Mexico. My favorite part had to be the spontaneous worship sessions when it was just cool to see a lot of these guys forego a little bit of sleep to just worship the Lord when Joe brought out his guitar after everything kind of settled down. So that was cool to see. I learned how much I still need to learn about how to lead. There was a couple other teams down there. Well, just to brag on these guys a little bit, they're very effective workers, and they're very easy to lead. There was a couple other youth groups that they were, they had servants' hearts, but they just need a little bit of extra direction. And I was not patient a lot of times, and I was like, I'll just do it. And that's not how to lead. And so I kind of realized in retrospect, I was like kind of foregoing loving leadership for efficiency and just getting it done. So it's, just looking back, I was like, there's a lot I still need to learn. I chose 1 Peter 2:9 as the verse that just kind of, it struck me as really important. It reads, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." I just like that because it's in a really awesome way that our identity and our calling. So it's just a really good summation of like who we are in Christ and what we have to do.
Awesome. All right, can you guys give a round of applause for what the Lord allowed us to do?